Okay, so ProCraft cabinet assembly, let's get into it. The first thing you have to know is that they are counterintuitive in the way that they are assembled. Most RTA cabinets out there are very user-friendly. They have pre-drilled holes, they have brackets, everything's already in place. You put the two side panels on, you slide the top and bottom in, and then you put the back plate on, you screw it together. It's easy. There are instructions, even videos. With the ProCraft, they are really more of a builder grade cabinet designed for contractors who already know how to put them together. They don't really need instructions, they know how they work. So they're not really user friendly, there are no instructions to be had anywhere, and so actually this is it. This is all there is, what I made here. So hopefully it helps you to get them together. They're decent quality cabinets, they're just not IKEA. And you have to start with the face and frame. And I figured out the best way to open these boxes is to open the two sides first, just to keep from cutting the cabinet, because it really is right under there. Just lift this up and run the knife. And that'll usually just tear by itself. And so what we want out of here is we just want the frame. So you're going to find that when you open them this way, the frame is actually on the bottom. You can kind of lift up the door and gently slide that frame out. This is a 27-inch wall cabinet that we're going to be putting together. So frame first, then we'll move this box and we'll come back. Okay, so you get these two boxes that come with it, and one of them you need this. This is what you need immediately. It also comes with the, this is the shelf inserts to put the shelves in, but you don't need that right now. And then this has the hinges and stuff in it, which you don't need right now, so those can be set aside. So this is the door and frame box. I'm basically going to pack all that stuff in there because I'm only putting the boxes together. You don't want to completely assemble the cabinets. You don't want to put the doors on. You don't want to put the drawer slides in the bottoms. You just want to put the boxes together and install them. So they're much lighter, they're easier, and if you're like us and you have cabinets, you know, followed by countertops, which is what we have. We have cabinets, countertops, and flooring going in. You basically don't want any more in there than you need, because subs are incredibly busy. They have to do production work, so that's how they make their living, so they have to bang this work out. So they're just not always able to be as careful around stuff. They really try. For the most part, they do pretty well, but sometimes, you know, they're just going to scratch stuff up. So this is a $6 roll of blue tape. So after you get everything together, you can see there's not a lot of white. This is basically going to be the only white thing showing. And I just like to put a layer of this tape on there, and so that nothing gets damaged and there's no issues later. Because if it gets damaged, I guarantee you it's going to be more headache than a $6 roll of tape and the time it took you to put it on. Okay, so most of the RTA videos will show these things being glued. I recommend using a good quality glue. This is about $8, and you're going to need, depending on your cabinet, just one of these is going to do about maybe 4 or 5 cabinets, maybe 6 depending on how much you use. So this is Type Bond Ultimate 3, really high quality glue. You can put it in all the channels. It's also handy to have like some of these. It just helps you to hold everything together if you're doing it by yourself. If you have a helper, I suppose they can help you. You don't need that. But these, you really kind of want these anyway, and you'll see later why. Okay, so next is the box. When I say box, I don't mean box. I mean this is the box portion of the cabinet. So we're going to open it the same way, so we don't cut it. So you immediately don't need everything out of here. You need most of it. Obviously you need the two sides. The shelves you're not going to need, so we're going to put these aside. The difference between the shelf and the bottom is the bottom is thinner. You can immediately tell the difference. This is the bottom, so we need that. Really, I mean, look at the shelves. You see the really quality. See how thick this is? 3/4 inch plywood. Not like the cheap particle board in a lot of cabinets. So I think they're definitely worth the effort if you're willing to put in the work putting them together. I guess the biggest tip is just don't get in a hurry. So this is the top. It doesn't matter, bottom, top. And then here is the back. And it's got these two channels in it. Okay, so another helpful trick is to get the last bit of your glue. You need it. If you have it upright like this and you have a little bit of glue in there, kind of you have to wait for it to run down. You never really get it all. So take a block and just drill a hole in it, big enough for this to fit in. It'll always be, the glue will always be right where you want it. So first thing, we're going to run glue in all these channels. So a word to the wise about the glue. If when you're assembling this thing, when you're putting it together, if you don't get any glue running out of the seams, you don't have enough glue. If glue is pouring out of the seams, you're using too much glue. It's kind of the litmus test for that. And we're going to run glue in all of these as well. And I find that if you try to install this and it's upright, this little thin channel is hard to get glue into. It just wants to run off the side, so it's really best to do it now. So you're going to run some glue in all these. So you're going to want to have on hand just something that you can put a top on, and put water as warm as you can stand it on your hand in here. It just helps to take the excess glue off. And just any old dirty rag or piece of a t-shirt or whatever you've got. And now we got glue in these. I like to, for these big channels here, since we're going to be having those vertical, the glue likes to run a bit, so if you spread it out with your finger first, it won't run. So you have to constantly watch for the glue to run and just to wipe it off while it's still relatively wet with a warm, damp cloth. So okay, so we're going to put one of these aside. And we're going to just stick this one in first. Now what you're going to notice is there's a channel on this. I don't know if you can see that little channel there. And it's actually meant to kind of sit on this lip right here. You kind of got to angle it in. Now what I've noticed on some of these larger cabinets is that there's always a bow. For instance, this one bows this way. So you have to push it with your hand until it fits into the channel. If it's bowed here, you push this way. If it's bowed that way, you push this way. Whatever way it's bowed. Okay, so it's in. Now that it's in, you're not really home free. You have to make sure that it's relatively square with the cabinet, or I should say flush. You want these joints here, this one and this one over here, to be flush as possible. Now you can use the tool of your choice. If you want to use a rubber mallet, great. But this is far more persuasive, a block and a hammer. This distributes the shock, so you're not going to hurt anything, but it just puts so much more pressure when you need to move this stuff. So tap, make sure it's level, but flush. Then we're going to put the side pieces on one at a time. Now, when you're doing the bottoms, it wants to fall apart on you. You can't just let go of that. But these, it kind of wants to stay there, which is great. And then you can either use a hammer and a nail and pop one in here, or if you've got a nailer, this is an inexpensive Ryobi $100 nailer. You can use it. You just want to shoot one tack into the top to hold it. And we're going to put the next one in on the top. Actually, there's really no dedicated top and bottom. It's identical. So you can turn it whichever way you want the doors to open, because, well, I guess both sides are pre-drilled, so that doesn't matter either. Really is no dedicated top. Okay, so we got this in. I'm just going to tack it at the top here. Alright, so that's good. Next, we got to put the, again, it's counterintuitive, but we have to put the back on next, and then the other side. Now, you don't want to run glue in these channels, because when you turn it over, it'll just go everywhere. You don't want that. So what you're going to want to do instead is just to run a beaded glue right on top. It works perfect. Not so much that it goes off the side, but enough that you know you got enough on there. You should always have some glue that runs out of the corners. If there's no glue running out, you just don't have enough in there. Alright, so that's that. Now it's time to get this one on. Again, no dedicated top or bottom, it goes either way. So get it as close as possible, and then just put the channels on, and that will kind of line it up where it needs to be. Then you can start to come down with it and then push it in. And this is where I like to use these. Now that it's in, I'll hold that and then make sure everything's in over here, and we'll hold this. Get it nice and tight. And then we're going to tack it with the nailer. I like to tack at both corners. This is the way cabinet makers make it. They use glue and either staples or brad nails like this. So that's tacked there. So now what I like to do is I like to actually run this down. When I say run, I mean I'm going to walk these down to make sure that it's really tight everywhere I'm nailing. There goes my glue. Alright, so this side is fully tacked. except for a couple of bottom tacks that I'll put in a bit. So the next thing is wipe for glue before you proceed. So we're going to take our nice wet, warm rag, give it a fresh bath there. We're going to look inside of here and wipe the seams where the glue is coming out. And we'll go back and forth a few times to make sure you get it all. Especially check the corners. Glue likes to kind of end up there. If you wind up letting some glue dry, it's inevitable that some will escape you. You can remove it later. It's just, you want to get as much off now as possible because it's just so much easier. Alright, so put that back in. Now we're going to get our other side. Now this is the trickier part because this is the last piece going together, and so this is where the bows in this wood can make it a little difficult to get these in. You have to kind of look at it and see where's it bowed. You really need to get that in there. Like this notch has to be pushed in to where it's sitting right on the corner edge. So that notch there is supposed to fit. Because the corner edge is supposed to fit right on top of it, and then you push it in. And some of them take a little bit of convincing to get them in there. Okay, so for this one to get this in, basically have this thing out about a 45 and just working it down. Until you can see that it's in there. Because if you can see that channel, it's not in. So you don't want to be able to see the channel. So when it's in, then it's just a matter of getting one side started. And that's a matter of looking at this and seeing whether you need to pick this up or push it down. Sometimes you push it down. So there it is. It's slid into place there. Once you get one side, you're in pretty good shape. Again, you can use a mallet, but a mallet will never put as much pressure as this will on it. I think you just, and a mallet will damage the wood if you hit it wrong. So I'm going to walk this down until I get it seated. That down. Alright, so now it's all seated in there. So we're going to start to tack it and just walk it down. You can put one about, whatever spacing you think is appropriate. I'm going about every 6 inches. Mainly the tacks really aren't to hold it together as much as they are just to hold it together until the glue dries. Once the glue dries, that's going to be the main thing holding it together. I do like to use a few screws in the sides just as an insurance policy because, with threads, like with a nail, it's just by the pressure of the wood, but threads really hold stuff together, so I like to tack the corners in That's the basic structure of the cabinet. Okay, so now it's time to check for glue again. You got to kind of do that throughout the process. Also, make sure that none of the nails went out of the wood anywhere. Not an emergency. If any of the brads or staples or whatever you're using came out, you can use something like a punch like this and back them back out, pull them out, and put them where they're supposed to go. It won't do a lot of damage to the cabinet as far as cosmetics goes. You just need to correct it and get it out of there so there's not a nail sticking through. Everything looks good though. It's in. So now let's pick it up and check for glue. You can't wait until the end to check for glue because then it's going to be partially dried and it just is harder to get off and you have to kind of stop what you're doing to get it off. Alright, I'm not seeing any nails that came through. I spoke too soon. We got one that came through here. Every now and then maybe it hits a hard piece of the wood, or my shot's a little off, whatever the case may be. You just got to take this and back it out, because it's usually right next to the wood, so you can't just hit it. You have to have something that get on the head. So there it is. I'll take that back out and shoot another one right next to it, worth my nailer. Alright, so that was too far over, so I'll go a little bit farther over here. And there it is. So now it's time for some screws. There's a number of places you can put screws in here to hold it together. There are plenty of screws, but the only ones that are pre-drilled are the ones in the back here. So there's 2 top, 2 bottom, and those are the only ones that you can just shoot a screw in because the hole's already there. Everything else you kind of need to drill. You can horse it in if you want to just horse it in. You do risk splitting the wood, and it's hard to countersink them, even though this is just plywood, but they don't just want to countersink. Now, as far as shooting the screws in there, you could use a clutch if you've got a really nice drill. This is just a 7.4. I'm using a drill, and then this is a little home screw gun. This is plenty good enough to put the screws in, but I find that the clutch on this particular one, and clutches on a lot of them, when you're screwing into wood, sometimes it'll stop, sometimes it'll strip. So I just put it on the drill setting and I inch up to it, and that just gives me the peace of mind to know that it's not going to strip. So I'm not going to strip it. Okay, so if you don't have the special bit that makes the counter sink holes for the screw head, you can just use a bit that's about the same size as the screw head to kind of wallow it out after you drill the pilot hole. So with a pilot hole, you want a really, really small bit. Just barely want to, if you're just trying to tell the screw where you want it to go, that's about it. I like to put 2 screws. You can do more. If you feel like there's a really bad bow and you want to put some in the middle, you can do that. There's this, I guess you can kind of see this, these plates here. This is the back and these are the plates. So I'm kind of drilling into the plate part of it. And it's about a good, oh, yeah, it's about 3/4 of an inch. So just try to get right in the middle of it. So I just, like I said, I just put them on the 4 corners, just as insurance until the glue dries. And then we're going to drill for these brackets. What I like to do for these brackets is, and these take the really short little screws, little bitty ones. They tell you in the one video, that's the one thing that is helpful, they say, hey, put them like this. And that's fine. but that's not helping with the structure of the cabinet. It's holding the bottom of the frame. So what I like to do is I like to put them here, like this. And that's helping with the structure of the cabinet. It's holding the cabinet together. And so you can put, I like to put them, because the thing is, you really need to do this. This is the frame part of it, right? This is the face frame here. And the issue with the face frame is, I don't know if you've noticed it or not, but really the only thing holding it on there is that channel. And how that wood is in there. You can kind of see that. And the glue. So, I like to have these there again because you're going to move it around a little bit while the glue's drying. And it's just more insurance to keep that box nice and tight. Now for this, when I say a little bit, just a bit. You just want to go in just a little bit. Not even a quarter of an inch. Just drill one hole and then put the screw in. Okay, so now we're going to shoot these screws in here. The reason I don't drill both holes is that I like to get this thing where it's going to be before I do the second hole. So screwing it, it's not going to move, and I can drill that second hole easily. Again, we're using the short screws. Don't use the long screws here. They'll come out the other side of the face frame. You really don't want that. So 2 more screws and then we're done with that. Now, guess what we have to do now? You never guess. Check for glue. Because after screwing these things even tighter, it's probably made a little bit more glue run out. But this essentially is your finished upper 27-inch cabinet. Here it is. Okay, so here are the finished cabinets. It's one of them anyway. I'm going to show you a close-up of what I did. You can see every place I tacked. This is where I chose to put the screw up here. And you can kind of see there's this big, nice, chunky 3/4 piece of plywood that we're screwing into. And I did the same thing at the bottom corner. Again, just kind of bolster the structure. And you can see I shot these brad nails in. This is the bottom piece. Right, if you look, you see this is the bottom piece here, and so I shot one here and one here, and then I shot the perimeter here as I assembled them, and that's the back. And then of course you have, these are the pre-drilled holes, one top, one bottom on each side, and then of course we have the brackets, which are here. And the reason you want these brackets here instead of here is what you're trying to do is you're trying to hold the box together, and there's really nothing. You see this channel, right? You can kind of see how it's got like this thing has the groove in it, so when it's together and it's glued, that's what's holding it there, but there's really nothing else holding here to here. There are no nails, no screws, so that's why these brackets are really important to get those in there. Okay, so let's take inventory of what we got from the 2 boxes that we need right now. We have the face frame. We have both sides, which look like this. We have the kick plate, which goes on the bottom. That's installed last. This is the bottom of the cabinet on the inside, outside. And then the back, which again, the back does not go on last like most other cabinets. It goes on next to last. So what you're going to want to do is put a few things aside. Put this aside before you start. Also, yeah, there are these. These are the corner pieces that help to keep it square. So these are really important that you install these. Then you're going to have hopefully less mangled box than this one. And you're going to want this. This is the hinges, so that you can put aside. You don't need that right now. I'm just going to open this up and pour out the contents. So we're going to run some glue in there. Next, we need some glue in this one. It's really important to not try to do this while it's vertical, because it's really hard to get glue in there with this little thing. It's just, it won't fit in there very well, and so. Now for this one, this glue will like to run a little bit because we're going to make this vertical. Not that one, but this one, because it's basically straight up and down. So I like to just smear it with my finger so that it doesn't run. Kind of spreads it out a little bit. You are going to need a damp rag to be wiping some of the glue up. Alright, so first piece, like this. Now this one is just going to slide in the channel. I realize you can't see it, but you kind of use your imagination a little bit. It just slides right in there. Now, something you don't want to miss is you really want to make sure that this is lined up with the top, because that's what your countertop is going to sit on. So you want this as close to being, flush as possible, so that everything's even. Right? And realize this is just sitting here, so it can fall down on you. So you gotta be aware of that. Now that I have it where I want it, and this is where you can either screw it or you can nail it, and you can either nail it with hammer and nails or one of these. So I'm just going to tack it with one. Okay, so now that's going to stay there. So now I can do some of the things I need to do to line everything up. Okay, so the next step is really important to do this right now. And this is going to help to keep everything square. You want to install this right now before you do anything else. If you're starting from making it nice and tight. So with this, you definitely need to drill it, pre-drill it. You can horse the screws in there if you want to. And I mean, when I say pilot hole, this pilot hole is not even 1/4 of an inch thick, or deep, I should say. And that's just to make sure that you don't have to work so hard to get that screw to start in there. Then you're going to need, and where'd they go? You're going to need these. These are the screws to install these. They're about maybe 1 inch or so. The way I like to install them is I like to get this and get that to where the screw is just slightly protruding out. This is just the easy way of doing it. You can do it your own way. But if you just get that to where it's just coming out a little bit, it allows you to find that hole. You can actually look at it and just find that hole right there. Just drill the first hole, and then if you want, you can horse both holes in at the same time in terms of, drilling them, but it's much easier to just do it this way. That way this thing's not going to move on you. Again, you don't want to push far. You want to make sure you have a nice short drill bit and don't drill through. Even if you did, it's the side and it's not going to show anyway. The reason why I put the glue on top is I tried putting it in a channel and putting that up here and it just drips out everywhere. So I just put a nice little bead up on top here and there's no mess. Again, if you have too much glue, it's just going to gush out everywhere. If you don't have enough glue, you won't see any coming out. Okay, so before we put this on, we have to remember this channel. Remember this channel I told you, if you get this thing vertical like that, I say the panel vertical, it's really hard to get that glue in here. It just wants to drip off the edge and down the side. So I like to just put it in right now. I did close that, yes. Now it's time to install the back, which is usually last, but in this case, it's actually second to last. So all you have to do is just get this as close as you can, and then drop it onto this bottom here, right? And then you're just going to slowly work it into here. Remember, you want to angle it up because it's got that channel on it. And once you get it in place, you can either have a helper hold it, or you can hold it yourself and put a tack in it. But the problem with that is you don't have it lined up yet. So I like to just use these little clips. If you've got them, use them. Not move too much again. I'm not just being a perfectionist, I promise. It's important that these are all as close to flush as possible, since that's what we have stone countertops going in, so it's quite a bit of weight up there. Alright, so now I got it exactly where I want it. There it is. Tack it in place. Okay, so now this is our piece that we glued before. So we got the glue in that channel. And this is the one that can be a little bit tricky to get on because some of these panels are bent. So I actually used the block and got them in that way, but I damaged this little lip thingy a little bit in the process, and I didn't like that. Even though it's glued, it's fine. It's glued, nailed, and screwed, but I found all you have to do is just put your hand around here and push it. You heard that go down? Because it's just this one's just a little bowed in. So if it's bowed out, you push it this way, whichever way it's bowed. So usually, this will want to start from over here first. It's just a lot easier to push that together. But don't tighten this down very much. Just tighten it on to where it won't fall off. Just a little bit. So you can move it. Now it's on. So before we do anything else, let's check our glue. We've got some more coming out from here after I nailed that in place. A little bit more. One more. Alright, that's good. And now up here, this is something that they completely did not address in that terrible video I found that somebody made. They did not address getting this even so that this is all nice and flat up here. Alright, so now let's tack it. So we're going to tighten this clamp as much as it'll go without breaking it. And we'll tack it in place. Okay, so now that we got these four in, we want to shoot some screws in the side. And before we do that, let's check our glue, make sure We don't have any more running out. I realize that I can use, a bit that will drill the hole and make the pilot hole for the head. I get that, but I don't have it. I didn't feel like buying it for this, and so I'll show you a workaround for that with just regular drill bits. So you see this piece of wood here? This is about a 3/4 inch by about 2.5, 3 inch. So I like to nail that right in the middle of it. I only put 2 screws per side. That one, and then the same thing, you got another piece of wood up here. I like to avoid the channel, but if you want to put it in there, you can, but I like to stab this piece of wood here. Alright, next we're going to switch bits, and we're going to use a bit that's right about the size of the screw. And this is just to make a place for the screw head to live, so that it'll be flush or really under the surface of the wood. So just a little bit. See just that little bit right there? That's all you need. That's it. Now we're going to put some of those same screws that we used here. I think they're about 1 inch, and they've got the tapered head, right, so that they'll sink. First one over here, I don't know if you can see this one. These are just 1 inch brad nails, I think they do a good job of tacking together. But I mean, if they had all these pre-drilled, I wouldn't mess with the brad nails, but nothing's pre-drilled, so let's put one top and bottom and make sure that it holds everything in place while that glue is drying. And if you want, you can put more. You can put 4 or 5 or however many you want on the side here. But you don't really need to. Alright, so next we're going to turn it. And we're going to put our braces here. These are using the really short little screws. So these are the 2 little tiny braces here, and the short little screws. I mean, they're tiny. About a 1/4 inch of thread there. And then what I did was I went to Lowe's and I bought this National corner braces, 1.5 by 3/4. And here's what they look like. And what we're going to do is we're going to put that in the middle here. You could also put it, if you wanted, you could put 1 in each corner. These are much more robust than that, because they take 4 twice as many screws, 4 screws. You don't have to do that step. I did because I wanted to make sure that it was really solid. Okay, so now we're going to pre-drill these holes. And so we pre-drilled, we put the first screw down. We pre-drilled after we had the first one screwed in, and that should be nice and tight. Next one. Nice and tight. So now we want to turn this over, although I'm going to check my glue again. Make sure that nothing's dripped out. If you've got a better drill with a clutch, you can depend that it's going to stop. I find with wood, sometimes it stops, sometimes it strips. So I just opt to control it by inching up to it like that. Anyway, so that's the extra one you don't really have to have, but there it is. So now we're going to stand it up and put the kick plate on. Now if you have a wider table, that's great. It can really, you know, you can just have a lot more room to have stuff. If your room's big enough, I didn't have a big enough room, so I opted for more like a 4x4 table. Just easier to walk around. Alright, so when you get this on, just try to make sure that it's relatively flush. It's not going to be perfectly flush, but about the same on each side. Push it up as much as you can. I think that's all the way. And you can either screw it or you can nail it. You can nail it with just a hammer and nail. One of these. And just do it that way. But I've got a nailer, so I just use it. It's much faster. Okay, so yeah, the nails that we use are just these 18 gauge 1 inch. And this little nailer, this is a really cool thing. It's a Ryobi, and it's called an airstrike. It actually isn't a pneumatic, but it uses electricity to create the air pressure for every one you shoot. So it's a really interesting invention. I think I got this for $100, less the battery, which I already had because I had the other kit, all the other tools. That's it. There's 4 nails to hold that thing on. We're going to be installing white kick plate over all of it after they're all in, so it's nice to have this to just nail to. You can nail that kick plate to it really easy. And that's it. That's the box portion of the program.
Okay, so this is the installation of the finished ends. That's the end of the cabinet that's on the shelf. And they're basically just white plates. Now the other side is white. This side is where the glue is. So you got to adhere to the cabinet. I've opted for some contact glue, which I applied with just a $5 cheap roller and pan that's going to be disposable. And just rolled it on. Also rolled it on these 2 cabinets. This is where it's going. Additionally, I put painter's tape. Let me see if I can get a close-up of that. You can kind of see the painter's tape that's just around the perimeter, and also that's on the edge of the face frame. That's just to keep glue from getting on anything I don't want it on, or just to make, for making a colossal mess. And I have a 3M breather on because of the fumes in here. That's why I probably sound a little muffled. So anyway, I did buy a cheap brush, which I never wound up using. I thought I might need it for a spotter here. You can also use it to clean up. What I did was I stripped up this stuff that's in the boxes, the cabinets. I just made strips and cut some. And I actually used that to wipe up the channels and just wipe up any contact glue that got somewhere I didn't want it. Okay, so it's really important to get it really against the hard against this this edge right here. It's hard against there, and as flush here and here as possible, because you're going to have countertop sitting on top, and then this is going to be against the floor. So you want to make sure you don't have an overhang either way, because it'll put pressure on it and maybe cause it to pop off. So it's glued in place. Right? What I noticed was we're good up top is fine. But down here, just the way it fit. There's nothing wrong with the installation, but it's just the way it fit. It was just a little low right here. So what I did was just shave this off a little bit with a razor knife. You can grind it down any way you want. You can break out a sander. You don't want to make it jagged, but you're likely going to cop down there anyway. But you just don't want this to be high and be contacting the floor and putting pressure on the plate. You can just like scrape that off to where it's not protruding down. So when the contact glue is ready, you'll know because you can touch it. That means it's ready to be installed. So we're going to start by putting it against this edge here, kind of at a 45 or so. So it's not really sticking. We're just positioning it. And as you come down, you're going to put the pressure this way. And start to stick. You really got to be putting pressure on that though. Alright. The thing about contact glue is once you stuck it, you're stuck with it. It's there. It's not going anywhere, so don't get your hopes up that you can move it after you've installed it. Alright, edgewise, we're good down here. Up here is protruding slightly. So I'll go ahead and trim it again with this.
Okay, so this is the drawers, and this is one of the places where you really pretty much have to have glue. So what you're going to want to do is, for the two shorter pieces, you want to get a little bit of glue. And these fit fairly tight, so when I say a little glue, I mean a little bit of glue. Okay, so we also want to glue the channels. Let's just do this. And again, we're going to go vertical with this, so I think I'm going to smear that. Alrighty. It's like this. Push it together. But you'll find it needs, shall we say, a more persuasive effort. And you'll be waiting all day if you're waiting for it to, like, for this to be perfectly, it won't go. I mean, you can get it so far. But you're still going to be able to feel it, like it's not going to be perfectly smooth there. Alright, so getting our glue off from the seams. Going to fit in the panel. Liven the seams a little bit. I got a little bit out there. Again, if you get no glue, if you don't have any glue come out, you're not using enough. If it's gushing out, you're using too much. Alright, next one. Fit it on. Let's see. How do I want to do this? Let's do it this way. You can get so much more pressure on it than with a mallet, with just a hammer and block, and it won't damage the wood. So now I'm going to go this way, finish it off. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. Do a preliminary wipe. Alright, so now this is where you know you have to put the side panel on last. It just is the way these go together. They don't go together any other way. Don't try it any other way because it won't work. For either one, it doesn't matter which side panel, just one of them. now let's wipe off the glue, wherever it may be. You want to check all seams, top, bottom, sides, front, back, everywhere. At the end of your job, you'll probably find some places, oh, I should have wiped that. Doggone it. Now you have to get the really, get a hair dryer and some hot water and a toothbrush, and you're trying to get the stuff off. Okay, so now, another important step that you don't want to skip. You want to put some nails in here. Just don't nail in the channel, I think they call that a dado channel, anywhere but there. So I like to go, so you're nailing through here, you want to nail it right about in the middle of each one of these. It also makes that expand a little bit, which makes the glue work even better. About right there. About 3 in each one. And that's it. This is how, professional cabinet makers do it. They do nail and glue predominantly. Alright, now we do the other side. And just got a little more glue. You can see that it really is beautiful cabinetry. No argument with the quality. Quality is excellent. The instructions are AWOL. That's it. That's your drawer, at least the box part of it. Now we have to put the face on. Okay, so after assembling the cabinets in some of the corners inside of the cabinets, there's just a little bit more of a gap than I like, and some of the ends are a little jagged where the corners go together. So my solution is this Dynaflex DAP 230 almond colored sealer acrylic caulk, and that's just going to allow me to get this in the corners on the insides of any of the cabinets and just make it look really polished in there. It will blend right in with the color of the cabinets on the inside, which are a very light tan, and it will just cover up any of those gaps. Really easy to do, not expensive, just a few dollars for this, so I recommend that.